The BC flu.
The BC flu.
The BC housing flu, I'm going to call it.
Yeah, maybe we got to call it something. It's a mess, and it's getting messier. And by the way, as I suggested would happen, is this is this is going beyond BC's borders and it's starting to spread. I'm pretty serious. I think this is going to be just paying attention to what Eby is not doing. So the Premier of British Columbia is not doing. What he didn't do is leaving it really open. So what's happening is I do believe this could be Canada's Black Swan event unfolding before us, and nobody's recognizing it as a Black Swan event yet. But it's bleeding out. This is this is where contagion takes over, JG, and the impact of this, the ripple effect, the unintended consequences. This is literally got contagion possibilities written all over it because it's starting to bleed out into other provinces. We've even got a tribe from Alaska coming in and saying we have mineral rights. So it's a U.S., Alaska coming into Canada going, we have mineral rights. I want to say it's on BC coast somewhere. I think I don't remember. It doesn't that's inconsequential where it is. The fact is they're coming in with their claims, and there's claims rolling out right across the country now into East Coast as well. So I don't know if you've been following it or paying attention, but that's what's happening, just like that.
I've been an F1, bud. I've been living in the land of the rich and famous with the celebrities and like
right. Schmoozing, hanging out. Yeah. And so then you come, next thing you know, you come back and you don't own your land anymore. Or
it turns out you don't own any real estate anymore.
You're having to make deals with whatever Indigenous tribe owns your real estate because you got freehold, and they're going, no. If you want to renew a mortgage, you have to get it approved by us. So those are already conversations happening, by the way, just so you know.
I did do some research on the properties where I own all my properties, whether or not we have treaties. I did do some research. So it was interesting. Turns out we do. It's just a good thing, but
in some, probably not all areas.
Well, yeah, I didn't go that deep into it, but it seems like there are the lands where, Aurelia, Peterborough, Lindsay, there's a treaty that seems to cover the bulk of it. But listen, I'm no expert in that shit. So
yeah, well, neither am I. I'm just trying to figure out how this all plays out. But I think it's not going to be good. I really do believe that this could shut down the province of British Columbia. It could go that way. Do you want me to share my, I don't know if it's an analogy. I guess it's an analogy, not a metaphor. Okay. Do you want my analogy?
Tell me. Hit me with it.
Okay. This is what's happening. So a friend of mine years ago worked for the city of Toronto, and they were doing, when I'm saying years ago, just so Toronto, this is how long Toronto's dealt with this issue. This was at least 25 years ago. So he worked for the city of Toronto, and one of his jobs was traffic management, or I don't know what the hell they called it, but he had to do a study of traffic. So he was kind of leading that charge, and they were monitoring traffic because they were trying to figure out why it was on freeways that there would be no accidents, yet in high volume times, you would have these backups that were miles long and where traffic was literally stopped, but there was no accidents. So they were studying this, and they at the time didn't realize it. All seems pretty common sense now. But what they noticed was, let's say there's a line and you start at the beginning of that traffic line. Okay, so somebody at the front of the line in the first, let's say, 100 cars or whatever you want to use, they sneeze. They touch the brake. There's then a chain reaction. The person behind them touches the brake, and then on down it goes. Maybe somebody else, scolds their child, turns around, gives their kid shit, touches the brake. Well, by the time you're 4 and 5 miles down the road, it's stopped. Nobody's moving. And that's the lag effect of somebody sneezing up front, or one or two people tapping the brake, not stopping, just tapping the brake, and the impact of the lag of what happens 5 miles down the road. I think this is that. I think what just happened is a couple of brakes have been touched, and we're not going to feel the impact of it for probably a couple of years, because what's starting to happen, and these are all anecdotal, but not so anecdotal, is we're starting to see businesses touch the brake. We're starting to see people touch the brake. We're starting to see banks touch the brake. It's not shutting down the economy today, but look down the road. So all this brake touching, indecision, no decision, change of mind, guess what it has? It has that effect. So I don't know if it's a good analogy or not, but it was really speaks to how I see and how we see economy unfolding all the time. And I think that's exactly what's happening in British Columbia. And I think it's going to get really messy here until they change out this government.
I think it's a great analogy, and I think you're 100% right. That's the reality of what's happening is we keep coming up with reasons why not, and this is going to be the next reason why not.
Well, you think about it, and BC. So a lot of people think it's a BC problem. It's not just a BC problem. This is a Canada problem. Now, the epicenter of this is British Columbia, but British Columbia is a significant province in Canada. It's a port city. It is a city where a lot of things flow through shipping. A lot of things come through on train. A lot of things go through on trucking. So it's it is definitely an agricultural epicenter. So all of these things are going to lead to a slowdown. And so when we talk about, and where that bleeds out is into the other provinces. So I don't know exactly what it's going to look like yet. I just believe totally that it's going to slow things down.
I think you're right.
So there you go.
That's the depressing news for today.
I know. That's it. I keep telling you, I've been looking like crazy for good news. That kind of, is something to be look forward to. And I just economically.
The good news is if anybody owns single family, just hang tight. It's about to be worth a whole lot more into the future because they're not building anymore.
Yeah, they're not. So the good news is, hey, listen, the good news is, JG, you can still, you still have, you got off your wallet and you went in F1 and, you did good. That's the good news. We're going on vacation soon. So that's a good news. So there's some good bright spots there. Nothing to do economically. It's not just a BC problem anymore. We may actually be witnessing Canada's next Black Swan event because BC thought this land title ruling was a local issue, and I'm here to tell you it's not. On top of that, municipal taxes have gone up as much as 19.5% in some provinces. We're going to break down where, and we're going to share why.
Also, Patrick, the market has been lying to us. See, everyone is worried about watching for prices, but the real story is what's not happening. It's what's not being built. Right now, we're sitting at a 40-year low for permits, and that guarantees a supply crunch and maybe some good news for investors. We'll talk about that. And Canada has never built this many rentals and has never built this few homes. This is going to create an imbalance, and we're going to talk about it on this episode.
Let's rein it in, JG.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 78 of Rein It In. Patrick, we got a fantastic show lined up today, and I think we should not delay anymore. Let's immediately get on your soapbox and tell us about this Black Swan event. I see you wear a black shirt. It's probably because you're going to talk about the Black Swan event, I imagine. Is that right?
I should have worn my black framed glasses as well. Yeah, I think what we have to look at what's going on in British Columbia here, and as much as it's starting to get, mainstream, not a lot of people are talking about it. I'm surprised actually at how few people are really kind of paying attention to what's going on in British Columbia.
But sorry to jump in so quick, Patrick, but do you find that's the case for, like, let's call it the average everyday person? When you and I were at an Expand event a couple weeks ago, and you and I did a networking event in Toronto a couple weeks ago, I guess, 3-4 weeks ago, like I actually thought, wow, more people know about this than I realized. I thought it'd be, I guess what I'm saying is, if you're a real estate investor and if you're in the real estate world, I feel like you kind of know about this, but maybe if you're not, you don't know about it. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm actually surprised even local realtors here in the Fraser Valley are not really up to speed on what's going on. And I've talked to at least 3 realtors here in the Fraser Valley. They're pretty decent realtors, but they're not really paying attention to what's going on. To them, it's all noise right now. They're not understanding the implications yet. As I talk to them and we kind of unpack what unceded territory means, what what freehold title is, and why we're running into problems with British Columbia, and how this is going to maybe impact way outside the borders of British Columbia. And when I start to explain it to them, then they start to put and connect the dots, and they're starting to pay attention now. I also talked to a couple of people in Alberta. I was there last week. Same thing. They have no idea what's going on. So I'm going, okay, it's going to grow legs, and it's starting to grow legs already. So what started out really simple, JG, let's go back. What started out was Supreme Court, a judge in the Supreme Court of Canada acknowledges that the Cowichan tribe, they lay claim to the land that Richmond is sitting on. They're saying that's our land, and the judge says, no, you're right. EB, our province's premier, doesn't file a stay. So in other words, hold on here just a minute. We got to unpack this a little bit more. He does nothing. So guess what? That judge made that ruling, and now it has opened Pandora's box, because right across the country, BC then went on. I don't remember what tribes, and that doesn't really matter. It's not, that isn't what we're really talking about. The reality of it is that 95% of BC is on unceded land, which means there are no treaties, no agreements. We've acknowledged many times Indigenous rights to the land, and now we're sitting there saying, okay, I want my land. Well, what does that mean to everybody that owns their homes, owns real estate that their businesses sit on? What do the banks do? What do insurance companies do? So there's a huge impact of what's going on within BC around that particular topic. Now, even to the point, JG, where Nutrien, which is a fertilizer, was supposed to come through British Columbia. Guess what they're doing? They're going to the US. So this is just an example. This is the most recent example of where businesses are going, I'm not getting into that mess. I can't afford to take the chance, given what's happening, not just economically, but politically. And then who owns what land? Like, it's crazy. So Crown land is actually not really Crown land. It's actually, by all rights, Indigenous land. So this is getting really confusing. And now there's little headlines coming out, which are going to freak people out, when the Indigenous that own that land are saying, no, if you want to get a new mortgage, you're going to have to get approval from us. So whether that's all rhetoric, whether it's true, not true, it all adds to the confusion and to the chaos. And why I'm saying this is a Black Swan event is because people aren't paying attention. It's going to sneak up on them, and everybody is tapping the brake. And as people tap the brake, we're going to look down the road 12, 14, 18 months, 2 years, and we're going to start to see this economy really crash. That's how it's going to play out if something doesn't get done really soon, really soon.
Now, Patrick, I guess, do you know what can be done? I guess is the first question. Is, what are the paths forward here, and what is the timeline for? One of the paths forward that I see is this is going to get dragged out in courts. There's not going to be any clarity for months, if not years, most likely years, if not decades. Frankly, some of this stuff is sometimes in decades, and it may just blow the news cycle, and it may not worry. But that's one path forward. Another path forward is that lack of clarity creates real issues in the real estate world, like mortgages, as you've identified. That's one of the biggest downfalls I see of this whole thing, is if there's issues with property rights now. Well, this, in every mortgage document across Canada, there are clauses in there that talk about this, that if any of these property rights come up, like, they can call your mortgage. So this can be very scary to people, and I don't blame them. So that's another path forward. I hopefully that doesn't happen. Well, what are some of the other paths that could resolve this? Let's get positive about this, Patrick.
Well, can you get positive about it? Oh gosh, that's the stretch. I don't think there's anything.
What are the positive paths forward?
Well, the positive path forward is somebody, it would have to be government, or even the bank. Like, even, let's say, I don't know, some banking institution, OSFI or something, comes out and says, don't worry about it. This will get handled, and you are not at risk. Your land's not at risk. Your mortgages aren't at risk, maybe. But right now, there is nobody coming out and saying that. There is no path forward. Nobody knows how it's going to unfold. There's been town hall meetings where 700-800 people show up. No conclusion. EB is like going, yeah, he actually made a statement. And in his statement, he goes, yeah, and people who own properties in BC should be worried. That was him. He said that. Like, it's like, are you kidding me? I don't know even what that means, because he didn't go on in that particular talk to say what that actually means. Here's the thing about it, JG. You're a business guy. So I phoned JG. I go, hey, JG, listen, I've got a really great building here in the Fraser Valley. And man, it's a smoking hot deal. Cash flow's okay. Are you interested? The first question now is going to come out of your mouth, which is, okay, where is that in this unceded real estate? Like, are you going to tie up millions of dollars in this province?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Yeah, for sure, 100%. No, it's another reason. That's what you and I were talking off air a while ago. But it's another reason to slow things down. It's trade wars, it's politics, it's real wars, it's Russia, it's Ukraine. It's just another reason for people to say no. And God, that drives me crazy.
And legitimate reasons to say no. I mean, if you're risky, if you're mitigating risk, you're going to. Here's the thing about it, is that right now, and why I call this a black swan, or the potential of a black swan. I mean, black swans are those things that show up that we're not prepared for. This has been going on for many years in the background. It's a black swan in that EB, the provincial government, did not talk about what was happening in behind closed doors. They didn't make public announcements about it. They didn't say, oh, we've been fighting this for 10 years and oh, we're in year 7. They haven't been updating the public about what's going on in behind the scenes. So it just shows up, boom. Now, for many, this will show up as a surprise, because as this economy I believe, is going to start to be paralyzed, and it's going to be paralyzed, parts at a time, and then it's going to bleed out into the other provinces. One of the things that I think is going to happen is that you're going to see a lot more people move from British Columbia into Alberta. I think Alberta's going to have
which is hilarious, because it's typically the other way, isn't it? It's typically the other way.
Well, the past couple of years has been BC going to Alberta, but I think because of affordability. Now add to that affordability issue, the other real issue, which is, I don't know who owns this real estate, who's running this province. And if all of a sudden, there is a place where, when you think about the kind of all of the tribes and Indigenous owning 95% of British Columbia, we don't know politically where that's going to go. What concessions are going to be made? We've talked about this before. Do we think this will get handled? Yes. Is it going to happen soon or swiftly? Absolutely not. There's too much politics involved. There's federal politics, there's municipal politics, there's Indigenous politics. They've got lots of politics too, and they got lots of shit going on. So my point is this going to stall? This is going to bleed out right across the country. And that's the concern. And I think people have to be aware of it and paying attention to it. There's nothing we can do about it, but don't get caught blindsided. Be careful with your decisions and understanding what's in behind the curtain, if you will, of what's going on in British Columbia. And I think the province is very, very much at risk of just almost total paralysis if this doesn't get resolved. And it doesn't have to even, it isn't even it's not that it has to be resolved, but there has to be a conclusion that gets people confidence that this will turn out okay. And that's not happening. There is no path forward right now. It's stalled.
When is your next election, Patrick? When's your next election?
2 years, I think. 2 or 3 years. There's some talk about, some midterm or whatever they call it, but I don't know. I just know that right now, the way politics are unfolding, it's right across the country. I think it's a mess.
Now, Patrick, let's move on to the next topic here and discuss what you and I have. We've touched on this before many times. We've got some great charts to show you, but right now everyone is focused on real estate in terms of prices, where prices are going, and so on and so forth. And we've been calling it for a while, but this whole situation is setting itself up for a massive, and I'm talking about massive, supply shortage in the single family space going forward into the future years. 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. People are going to want single family homes, and there won't be any. And permits are at an all-time low. I mean, permits are literally cratering. Look at Ontario. I got an Ontario chart on the thing. I got a BC chart. And in fact, a lot of builders are getting out of the business altogether. Not Vistra, by the way. Anybody wants to build something, Vistra's still in the business. Call us at Vistra. we'll do all the business, but a lot of builders are leaving the business, right? And this is setting up. This is a perfect setup. And you and I talk about this all the time. Real estate has a 12 to 24 ish months, lag. So we're showing you what's coming in 12 to 24, maybe 36 months, but this is what's coming. And anytime if you have supply and demand, and supply comes down in a big, big way, what happens to demand and what happens to pricing, Patrick? Basic economics 101. What is it?
Well, prices will rise, supply and demand. There's not enough supply, but we'll see what demand is given if prices don't come down. This is the quandary, isn't it? But ultimately, we know there's going to be a shortage, and ultimately, we know people want to have that single family home. That's still a dream. It's still what people hang on to, and there will be a demand for it for sure. Will it be as strong as it has been in previous years? Maybe not, but there'll definitely be a demand for it. Here's the other side of that from an investor point of view. So let's go back to what you're just saying. Many have shut down, many have actually gone bankrupt, but those others that had the wherewithal have morphed into the rental market, building purpose-built rentals. They wanted to keep their businesses alive. They needed cash. They want to keep their staff employed, et cetera, et cetera. But guess what that's doing? That's on the other side of the coin where there's going to be lots of overbuild scenario and purpose-built rentals. Back to single family, JG, is you're right. It's going to show up. I'm pretty like I'm looking at the numbers and I'm thinking probably 2 years away, closer to 3, where we're going to start to see that show up as things kind of level out. The economy, I believe the economy at some point will turn around. We have to have confidence that it will do that. But then ultimately, we're going to have people that are finally making money. Jobs are kind of sorted out, and they're going to want to live in a house that they don't have access to because there are none. So it's a different problem for sure.
Yeah, the rentals definitely, Patrick, are off the charts, and I know that right now you've been talking about this for a while, and we're seeing this in the rental market right now. Where there's two things happening at once. There's a lot more supply hitting the market, and we have a lot less demand in the rental market, and that's why rents are coming down a little in Ontario, a little bit, not crazy. They're down 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% maybe in some cases. The nicer your unit, the more you've invested in your unit, the more you've renovated, the less you're feeling it. In fact, I'm not feeling it in most places, and I'm feeling it maybe 2%, 3%, maybe in some cases 0%. Across my entire portfolio, I'm still positive in terms of rent. I'm generating more rents this year than I did last year. But Patrick, but you got to play the game, and you have to do it well, and you have to renovate, and you have to improve, and so on and so forth. But in general, that's what's happening: is more rental supplies hitting the market, and there's less demand. There's less students than there's ever been coming into the country. There's obviously less immigrants than ever coming into the country, and that's lowering the demand pressure, and the supply pressure is definitely going up, and that's what's happening. And we're seeing that, Patrick, in the vacancy rate. You can see here the vacancy rate in Canada has popped back up from 1.5% to just about 2.5%, and we're seeing that in Peterborough. Same thing. Peterborough's had like a less than 1% vacancy rate for years and years and years, since like 2017 or 2018. It's been a long time. And we're now back up to 3%. Is that something to be concerned about? No, not really. 3% is still a very acceptable vacancy rate, but it's not 1%. And if you have a garbage unit, you're not going to be able to rent it. And that's what owners have to understand, Patrick. If you have a garbage unit, you're not going to rent it because renters now have choices. 3 years ago, they didn't have choices, so they were renting anything and everything under the sun. But nowadays, they got choices.
So they do. And, when we talk to investors over the past at least 2 years, I've been suggesting that people look at tertiary markets. Peterborough, I consider Peterborough a tertiary market. It's not a CMA really. When you look at the major centers, the major cities right across the country, that's where a lot of this overbuild is happening. So for investors, when we look at affordability, where we look at probably what I'm seeing is the propensity for people to want to get out of the major centers for all sorts of reasons, by the way. It isn't just about affordability. It's lifestyle choices that people are making. There's all sorts of reasons that people are going to the smaller markets, different even when there was lockdowns, for example, when everybody's working from home, et cetera, although there's a little bit of that still happening. It becomes a lifestyle choice, and getting out of the city centers, given the immigration, we see is it the word degradation, the degrade, the inner cities of every major city in this country. Kind of, we're seeing poverty. We're seeing, what's the word I'm looking for? The homelessness, the drugs, all of the stuff, the violence, it's all happening in major centers, and people are getting out of those cities. So I think, and so kind of long-winded to get down that path, is not as much purpose-built rental is going into those areas yet. So we always come back to risk mitigation. Anybody that is looking at buying multifamily, true multifamily in a CMA, central metropolitan area, we need to consider what is being built in there. What is your competition? What is being built? Like Edmonton is really, and I think Calgary to a similar degree, is really about infill, about that 6 and 8plex being built. Those are the styles that are being adopted. Like there's hundreds of those units, thousands of those units being built. So if you're going to compete, if you're going to play in that space, you know that you have lots of competition in that space. So how do you set yourself apart? How do you compete in it? So those are things to consider if you're going to stay in a CMA. Otherwise, you get into multifamilies in the tertiary markets. I think that might be a better move. You're not going to have a lot of, listen, right now, given what's going on, JG, you're not buying for appreciation anyways, really. You're going to have some if you've got a long enough window, a long-term view. You're going to have appreciation, but you really have to be doing your math based on cash flow and a future softening over the next couple of years of rent, not increases.
Listen, I want to talk about it. We're going to talk about property taxes next, but before we do, I just ran numbers for a client this morning. Great client. We did a coach home tour 2 weeks ago, I think it was roughly, and fantastic with Gary Hibbert, one of our realtor partners. And on that tour, we showed a property that he had pocket listing off market and was selling for 460 ish, semi-detached 460. And I was like, this is a home run. So I ran some preliminary numbers. It looked really good. Well, that client who bought the properties now come back to Visture, and I ran a full ROI on it. Patrick, the single as a single family home, it could cash flow $25 a month as a single family home. By the way, that hasn't been possible in Ontario for 10 years. First of all. Second of all, as a duplex, you're cash flowing. I think it was just under 500, like $450 a month. And if I added a coach home, it cash flowed $1,467 per month. Now, don't tell me there's a real estate, like if you're interested in real estate, there's no real estate problem. That is fantastic cash flow. And over time, you will appreciate. You'll still do really, really well on appreciation as well. But Patrick, just that cash flow alone is phenomenal. You don't have to
100%.
you don't have to go anywhere else to get great cash flow.
The game's changed. That's the bottom line. The game has changed. And something I don't want to step over for investors. We've talked about Saskatchewan a little bit off and on, and we know that Saskatchewan has not been known for appreciation, but has been really good for really reasonable for cash flow. We had Carla Brown, part of the REIN meeting, our member meeting the other night, and she's talking about, to your point, she's talking about 1,200 square foot, 1,100 square foot bungalows, 3-bedroom up, 2 bedrooms down, not suited, and they're cash flowing a couple of $100 a month on just a straight up single family property in Saskatoon and Regina, I think she said. And I mean, ultimately, you're paying, I think, $350 or something along that line for a bungalow. Well, and Saskatchewan's crushing it right now economically. They're a bit of a standout. The challenge with Saskatchewan, of course, is the fundamental fact that they just, they're 1.2 million people. It's the whole province is just a really small population. But having said that, economically, they're doing really well, and it's only going to get better, especially given what BC's, struggling with right now. And we see an example of that with this recent fertilizer shift. So these are things that are unfolding. So we look at those markets. You just shared with Peterborough. Well, if you find one or two properties that are cash flowing on a single family, JG, guaranteed there's other single families out there that are going to cash flow more because somebody's behind the 8 ball somewhere.
100%. So speaking of Saskatchewan, Patrick, they might be getting more incoming residents because their neighbor, Manitoba, has upped the property taxes by 19.5%. This is the largest jump of all provinces. Now, listen, every province is raising taxes. They do this pretty all the time, I would say. I don't know. Has anybody ever brought down property taxes, Patrick? Probably not. I don't think it's ever happened.
I doubt it.
Probably not.
It's like
But
condos. It's like condo fees, strata fees, right?
they only go one direction, and that's up. Now,
Nobody's ever come up to me and go, "Hey, Patrick, my condo fees went down." Yeah, that's
You
never
did
happened.
you did talk about this roughly about 12 to 18 months ago. You talked about the property tax surge that was coming. It looks like it's finally hitting now. Manitoba's the largest by far. BC, not too, they're high too, like 9%. BC 9% bump. That's quite a bit. And Ontario's not is pretty high, 6% roughly. The point is you can see that the dark blue bars compared to the light blue bars is your October 2025 versus September 2025. So they all went up in 2025. They're all going up in October even more.
And they will all go up again next year. So we just know that that's what's going to happen. And some of that is because of what's going on economically. If you don't have as many people coming into the country, if you're not having as much building, think about in Ontario, JG, we've shared it many times. You're building short of the purpose-built rentals, so much building has been literally shut down. So think about all of those taxes that aren't getting paid, whether it be transfer tax or zoning or permits. And I mean, billions of dollars is not coming in. I mean, this was a pretty easy call. We could see this one coming. That's why we were talking about it even a couple of years ago, because it was really like, we know where this is going.
Because people see the difference is that in this scenario with property taxes, people can't opt out and say, no, I don't want to pay this. Well, you can if you sold and went and rented somewhere. That's your option. You can do that. But with the building and all the planning taxes and the building permit taxes and all the various shit they put on you, what happened is exactly what's happening now is people are saying, forget it. I'm just not going to build. And as a result, now that they lose all of that revenue. They're just idiots, Patrick. I mean, the level. I mean, I'm with you now.
JG, you're coming over to the dark side. You're starting to see.
I gotta slow myself. I gotta slow
how
myself down.
pathetic our governments are.
So yeah, property taxes not looking great. I will report this though, happily, Patrick. This is a little bit tangent, but people ask me all the time if I build a coach home on my property, how much will my property taxes go up? And I could never give a good enough answer because I haven't had enough of them long enough to know what the result is going to be. So I always assume that property taxes would essentially go up about 50%. You're doubling the value of the property. I typically buy a $500,000 property and I'll make it a $1 million, $1.2 million property, but by adding an ADU. And I've been in my budgets, I've been adding essentially a 50% tax hike. So let's just say I was paying $300 a month in taxes as a single family. I'll say I'll probably bump it up to $450 a month as with an ADU. But it's actually coming in much less than that. Right now, it looks like the increase is only about 20-25%, not 50%. So that's good. Now, I shouldn't have probably said this publicly on camera because they're probably listening to this, so now they're going to bring it up even more. But anyways, that's good news. There's my good news for today, Patrick.
There you go. Well, we have to consider, and we can morph into the conversation. I think we need to as well. But when you talk about every city, every province, the whole country, people in general, everybody's running in deficits. And so if you've got this huge deficit and a huge debt bubble at the end of all of that, and you're operating in a deficit where you can't pay down your debt, what's going to happen? And it only makes sense that they're going to have to increase taxes. That's the government's only source of revenue. That's this government's only source of revenue. Let's face it. This
Maybe
has
they
been
should do tariffs. Maybe they should do tariffs, Patrick.
We tariff the shit out of stuff going to the U.S. until Trump said no, enough of that bullshit. So that's part of what the fight is. Everybody's blaming Trump for the tariffs, but there's another side to that equation that we don't talk about, and that is the tariffs that Canada charges to the U.S. And we don't need to get into that, but the point of it is that the next phase of what's happening, and I said this months ago, and I'm telling you it's coming, and this is going to really throw things for a loop, and that is the Bank of Canada is going to start doing quantitative easing again. So we've got an announcement there where the Bank of Canada is printing money to actually fund their deficits, and the Bank of Canada is buying bonds directly from the government. So different slightly than QE. So QE is when the Bank of Canada is buying bonds from the open market. So bonds, even from US, to influence interest rates. And then buying bonds now directly from the government treasuries is the Bank of Canada's printing money to fund deficits. So these are all things that are going on. That is the next step into QE, by the way. And I think early first quarter 2026, I don't know, maybe mid 2026, QE is going to start hitting, and you're going to see inflation go crazy again. And we're going to be dealing with that. We just got such huge deficits and such huge debt, even given this recent budget. Yeah, it's problematic. We got big payments to make.
So listen, Bank of Canada is going to restart this. According to this news article, it's all going to happen in kind of mid-December. You know what else is happening in mid-December is the next interest rate announcement. So what's the Patrick prediction for the next interest rate announcement? Where's it heading, Patrick? Give us your crystal ball. We know you got it there. Take it out of the closet. Let's go.
I don't know if I have one on this one. If I think they're going to have no choice from an economically, I think they're going to be able to delay another decrease in interest rates. I think they're going to stay where they are in December. I think they can pull it off without too many consequences, but definitely the one into 2026, they'll come down a quarter.
So if they were smart, they would cut to get ahead of it. But you're saying they're not that smart, so they're going to hold, be idiots, and then cut in the first quarter.
I don't know. I don't know, because we believe, we think we have critical thinking. And so we're kind of thinking in terms of what makes sense. And it doesn't seem that the Bank of Canada or our government ever makes sense. So I don't know. It's nonsensical, actually.
So bonds right now, I know, again, like we're going on a tangent here, but bonds right now, the 5-year bond's at 2.67% right now. And so it's kind of been hovering in that range. Let me pull up a 6-month chart here. It's kind of been hovering in that range. It's a little bit lower than it was for sure in August. It's much lower than it was July through August. July through September, it was close to 3 and above 3. So we're definitely lower than that for sure. But I'll tell you this, I did get a renewal today. Yeah, we're negotiating back and forth. Gosh, it's 2 commercial buildings I own, 5.38%. So not bad. It's, I think
good.
Does it? Fuck, I really
want for commercial, I think that's not bad.
Don't say that publicly, Patrick. Now they're going to raise the price on me. I was really hoping to get high 4s. I was really hoping to get like a 4.8 or a 4.9 or something like that. I don't know. But it is much lower than it is now. I think I'm paying 6.5 or 6.8 right now. So it's a solid decrease down. And definitely the payments are going to come down $300 to $400 on each mortgage. So that part's good for sure. But yeah, I was hoping for a little bit lower, but you're right. It's commercial. It's mixed use commercial, even worse. So, but in terms of where interest rates are going, I am seeing a ton of people get a ton. I'm hearing a lot of anecdotal evidence from people that are getting mortgages. They're getting them in the high 3s and the low 4s. I just did my projections today for an investor at 4.5%. I think that's quite generous, because I think a lot of investors, especially if you don't have a massive portfolio, you can get money at 3.9, 3.99, 3.95, 4.05, 4.1. Is that what you're seeing as well, Patrick?
100%. Yeah, you're right in the money there. And so, but to your point, commercial is going to be just more money. It always is. That's just the way they roll.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, that's that. Let's, where do we want to go from here?
Well, I think we just want to shine a light on, the purpose-built rentals, JG. I think we have to shine a light on the fact that in an overbuild, or we won't call it an overbuild. Let's just call it an expansion in rental supply. And if right now it's, I think, in the range of about 6 to 8%. And if that comes to fruition as it is, over the next couple of years, I think given they've apparently choked back on immigration, and I don't even know what numbers to believe anymore, to be honest with you. But if the numbers that they're showing in terms of immigration, students coming into the country, as well as non-permanent residents, you're going to see a slowing demand in that rental market. So this goes back, I just want to highlight it, is you need to be doing math your pro formas for rents going down, not going up. Now, this warning goes primarily to those in Alberta, specifically into Edmonton. We still see that market. Everybody's pretty robust about it, although they're feeling it. I'm going, it's going to get worse. And I think in the next 12 months, you're going to hear a lot more about Edmonton's rents getting softer. Now, it's not going to be as bad as some areas, but if you're doing a pro forma and you're saying, well, cash flows $50 today, and I think in a year from now, it's going to cash flow 200 or 150. I'm going, no, I wouldn't be doing that math. I would be doing that math going, no, you're going to be lucky if you're still getting your $50.
Isn't it funny though? It's funny to watch, Patrick, because it's kind of like I feel like I watch people from Alberta and they're making the exact same mistake people did in Ontario in 2022. It's like they're doing everything they can to just, like you said, they're even manipulating their own numbers, believe it or not, in order to like, oh yeah, it makes money on paper. Yeah, but this thing, is it really going to make money? Like, are you counting your taxes? Are you counting your maintenance? Are you counting your property management? Are you counting all this stuff? Or are you just kind of fudging it on paper so that it looks good? Because, and this is what you say, Patrick, if you don't stress test that portfolio, man, those are the people that are going under, that have gone under in the last 12 months, is those who didn't stress test those portfolio, those who ramped up leverage through the crazy high, leverage your property 85, 90, 95%. You're asking for a beating.
Yeah, but okay, but let's go back, JG. I mean, as much as that is in fact we see it all the time, but you think about what's going on with lenders right now. So, when we talk about how difficult
I'll tell you what's going on with lenders.
Right, it's
Nothing.
hard.
Nothing.
Liquidity is drying up.
Yes.
And and so Matt, but this goes back to what we opened with in terms of what's happening in British Columbia. So if you think in a market like Peterborough, which is pretty strong, we'll just use that as an example, or even Alberta. I've talked to 3 different mortgage brokers now, and all the mortgage brokers are saying the same thing. It used to be 400 pieces of paper by the time you got approved. Now it's like 500 or 600, and there's more details, like there's more fine print. So in other words, a lot of those numbers are being back tested just with the banks alone. It's harder to get money. So think about what's going on right now in British Columbia when you consider if like this is foundational to this economy. And people, they're lacking land title, we'll call it land title certainty. So then everything is freezing up. Lending deals aren't going to go. Like I offered you a deal here in BC, you're a business guy, and you go, yeah, no, I don't think so right now. So lending deals, development was already on the downslide. And so then what are your valuations? So think about this, JG. Think about how nervous the banks got again. So we know what happened in Toronto. We know that the banks are upside down. They hold a bunch of mortgages that don't have the debt to loan ratios are totally messed up. They've got loans against properties that are worth far less than the mortgage that they lent. Now you're coming into, and I'm going to use British Columbia, this most recent, why I'm so concerned about what's happening in BC, is because the banks are going to look at it and go, yeah, no, maybe you should put 50% down.
That's right. That's exactly what's going to happen.
So anyways, I just wanted to point that out to kind of bring it all together in that regard.
Let's talk about some YouTube comments, Patrick. We've been asking for YouTube comments. We've been getting a ton of YouTube comments, so thank you very much. By the way, don't forget to like and subscribe. That's my little shameless plug. But we've been getting some fantastic YouTube comments, Patrick. So I'm gonna throw a couple at you here, and there's one in particular that's like, I'm feeling like this one's for you, Patrick. This one's like this
okay.
one.
I feel like this is a setup, but let's do it.
So this is Poich, I'm not sure, but at Poich. So with the land claim contagion, why are you still advocating for getting into real estate as a hard asset? Great question.
Okay, that's a great question. What we've talked about on many episodes, and we still operating in the background, is the fundamental that I don't care. So we'll use quantitative easing as an example. They keep pumping more money. Our fiat currencies, and I don't care if it's US dollar or the peso or Canadian dollar, we're losing, it's being devalued. That's the bottom line. So you still need to own hard assets. And ultimately, as they flood the market with more capital over 2026, is I think when QE is really going to kick in, you're going to see hard asset prices continue to go up. And I'm talking about hard assets as in real estate being one of those things, precious metals being one of those things, some equity, some stocks being one of those things. And we have to look at it, perhaps Bitcoin, all of those things. We have to look at where we're putting our money. So real estate is still a store of value. It still is a place to place capital, to put it to work, because over the long haul, real estate will continue to stay ahead or keep up with the rate of inflation. And so that's why.
Great answer, Patrick. Great answer. I got another one here, which is interesting, Patrick, because I think a lot of people are concerned about this, which is so this one says, this is at Rob PYYC. So I think he's from Calgary. The YYC is Calgary's airport code. For those of you who travel a lot, you know what I'm talking about. The USA is headed for a massive crash: housing, jobs, car sales, AI bubble, etc. When the US sneezes, Canada catches a cold. That's true. I came back from Vegas with a cold. I can confirm that. They are about to get a pneumonia, and Carnage is spending Carney is spending double what Sockboy did. This is the time for a Western alliance and independence. I'm surprised you haven't brought that up yet, Patrick. Otherwise, the anchor that is Ottawa will tank Alberta with the rest of Canada.
The only reason I haven't brought up, some kind of, Alberta going out on its own is because it's been a conversation for many, many years. And will it change? Maybe. Danielle Smith seems to be, really actually trying to move that ball forward. I don't know if I have an opinion on it yet. It's too early for me to kind of form an opinion. It's still, as much as there's a lots of talk about it, I think right now it's a lot of noise. I think there's no denying that the US is imploding, and but it's hard because you can get real data. Here's the thing: in the US, you can get data. You can get real shadow data, actual stats that are real because it's being tracked so well by so many. Whereas in Canada, it's not. So I don't think Canada's in any better shape in any way, shape, or form than the US. And I agree, what happens in the US is going to have a huge spillover in Canada. And sadly, we do not have a federal government. We do not have a leader. I mean, think about it. He's been there for months. He's all this rhetoric about these potential deals, and now there's whatever billions of dollars coming in from UAE. And I'm going, okay, well, what's the deal? There is no deal. It's some arbitrary promise for future state of something. So Carney is brutal. He's just, and there's a guy I follow on XJG, and there's a statement that he's been listening to Carney make every single speech that he makes. And there's a dozen major speeches that he's made, and it all leads with, I don't know what it is. It's like, this is an uncertain, dangerous something time. It's really dramatic. It's just a sentence, but it's very dramatic. So he's pre-positioning everything he's really loading the gun in terms of being able to say, I told you this is what was going to happen. I told you this was going to happen. So there's a part of it where we're not getting all the data. I don't believe the data anymore. As a matter of fact, I think we'd be very naive to even look at some of the numbers and say they're real, because it changes almost every single time, months down the road. So how do we make decisions? That's a problem. But back to the comment is, if the US is in fact going south, I don't know if that's the right term, given where they are. But the point is that, it's going to be a problem for Canada, for sure.
100%. Yeah. I mean,
When Carney was pressed, what was his comment? The US, not a big deal. It's not a big deal. Deal with it. It's not an issue right now. So it's like, okay. Oh, okay, Carney. What do you say about that?
That makes me feel a whole lot better. Thank you. But
this is who's leading our country.
I think the MVP comment, I'm going to start giving away awards for these comments because you guys are so awesome. So the MVP comment for this, for today's show goes to Scotty Y'all 7712. He says, please do a show with Ron Butler. That would be awesome. You guys and Ron are the only two YouTubes I watch regularly. So thank you very much, Scotty Y'all. I love it.
Wow. Hey, that's a big compliment because we're both big fans of Ron Butler.
Good old Ron. Ron hasn't reached out to me. Did he reach out to you? Did he say our call out last episode? Did it work? Did he reach out to you or what?
No, I should reach out to Ron.
Ron, we got to do a show. I want to get the angry guy. I mean, I don't, it's just too easy dealing with one angry boomer. I want two angry boomers on this show.
There you go. Bitchy boomers. Here we are.
Two bitchy boomers on this show, and we're going to call it the bitchy boomer episode. That's the pitch.
Okay, let's do it. Get a couple guests. Let's make it happen.
Well, Patrick, episode 78 was fire. We covered a lot of different topics. A single family rental stock, how it's going to change the kind of the surge that is coming, perhaps in pricing because of the demand in single family homes. Also, we covered property taxes and how those have gone through the roof, and then the Black Swan event that is coming like a train crash that you just can't stop watching.
And JG, I think I'll land on this. I have the quote that clarity equals velocity. We know that quote. Confusion creates chaos. Chaos creates opportunity. And we have to lean into the chaos, as annoying, painful, frightening as it is. That has to happen. We have to lean into the chaos because it is what it is. And that's where opportunity lives.
We create our own economy. Get to it.
Do it.